there's these times where it seems like he's kind of retreating into himself,
Uh-huh.
and it's almost like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like he goes away. Like in his eyes, it's like I've lost him. Like he's not there anymore, and it's kind of he's been replaced with this sort of blank stare.
And you notice that to be, did I understand you to say you notice that being a seasonal thing?
I mean, this particular time I did, but it can happen other times as well.
Oh, okay.
But definitely after like something kind of really emotionally charged or traumatic, I've seen it happen where he just had sort of. One of the times I thought he was like in a state of shock because he was just so inaccessible, and it's like he goes dead in his eyes. It's real scary to witness. I didn't know if that was something that's you know par for the course with this, or if there's maybe some overlap with something else.
Yeah, you're basically talking about a shutdown. I mean, you just described, and we have different forms of shutdowns. I'll give you the ones that are most prominent, and they go from mild to severe. And what you just described would be on the severe end. Mild shutdown would be it's fascinating to me, this topic here. The guys with autism spectrum disorder, they do, without boring you with a bunch of background information, again, on mind blindness and executive function deficits, they have learned from a very young age to retreat into their own little inner world. And that's the key term right there. They are often in their inner world. And so a mild version of a shutdown would be when you're talking to him about something that is stressing him, even though you may view it as a totally neutral topic, and he is not exhibiting any visible symptoms, doesn't melt down, any version of that, doesn't shut down as far as you can tell, and he sits there and he seems to be paying attention. And you could swear to God he's listening to you. And then he may even chime in every once in a while. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, okay, honey. Yeah, I'll do it. And then you think, oh, okay, and in the conversation. And then later on, if it was a task that you asked him to do, it didn't get done because he forgot. Or when you ask him about something with respect to a portion of the conversation that you had a couple of days, he didn't remember having it because he wasn't there. He was off in his little fantasy land, which would be a mild version of the shutdown, or shut off in that case. He wasn't totally shut down, but he was kind of semi-shut off. And then I won't give you all the different flavors, but we'll jump to the other end of the spectrum. And that would be where, and you use the term, did you use the term panic?
No, I don't think so.
You used some kind of a strong word, and I thought that's definitely. You said it was kind of like a something, and then when
I said shock, like a state of shock.
Yeah, yeah, shock. And when you said that, I thought it's not kind of like a shock. It is a shock. It is a version of a shutdown that is a response to anxiety overload. That probably would be the more accurate term, anxiety overload. And what's going on in that moment when he seems lost, he seems like a hologram. You can see that he's physically there, but mentally he's clearly off somewhere else. He is, and here's the key word, ladies, ruminating about I don't know if I want to use the term trauma, that's a little exaggeratory, the traumatic event or the anxiety producing event or events. When he's lost in thought, he is literally ruminating about the stressful episode, whatever that is. And he is literally, again, lost in his fantasy world, except in this case, we might want to call it a nightmare world. Do you have any idea what been going on with him around that time that he's kind of gets lost? I know you attributed a little bit to a seasonal thing, but you said it occurs other times as well.
So it occurred when the most pronounced one happened. One of our cats died, and
that explains it right there. So here's another topic then, and I'm not saying it's the case with your husband, Alicia, but I've run into this so many times, where he seems so lacking empathy for people. I'm just going to cut to the chase because I could go on and on and on and on. seemingly, it's very typical for him to appear as though he has no empathy for people. But you would be shocked, or maybe not, how many of these guys have such an affinity for pets. And when they lose a pet, it's worse than losing a human being in their life. They grieve, many of them grieve, I have seen it countless times, grieve the loss of a pet more than they have their a parent, for example. And she will often say, we went to his father's funeral and he just sat over there in the corner and acted like he wasn't even paying any attention. But we lost our dog and he didn't come out of his computer room for 3 days.
I was closer to the cat. I think in that particular instance, I think it was a combination of, there was so, it was the beginning of the lockdowns. There was so much going on, but I was in a state of just like total distress. And I think it was a combination of all these pieces where he just, it was like he went offline. Like,
Yeah.
he was like, I was talking to him and it was like, I couldn't get through to him. He was like just staring straight ahead. And
Yeah, I know. I've witnessed it, and it's like they've lost their hearing. And so it can be one relatively traumatic event, or it could be a cumulative effect of 2 or 3 things that coincided. Yeah. So that answers your question. What do you do in that case? I think the best thing to do is just say, you appear to be distraught, and just know that I'm here and you're not on that island alone. If you ever want to talk to me about what's going on, I'm here. Just let me know. And that's it. That was like 3 lines, 5-10 seconds long, and that's it. If you start interrogating, it's going to throw gas on, it's going to make a bad problem worse. If he can even listen to you. He's under high stress, and for you to ask questions, what's wrong or what's going on or why are you reacting like, that's just going to make it worse. So just let him know you're here. I like the line, you're not on that island, you're not on this island alone. Because remember, ladies, these guys are visual thinkers in a verbal world. And that brings up another topic. Whenever you want to, and we probably should have that conversation in depth at some point, when you can't seem to get through to him for whatever reason, or let me rephrase it, when he doesn't seem to understand where you're coming from for whatever reason, it would be good to use some type of imagery, some type of an analogy that has, as you're using your analogy, it has a vivid imagery. And so that's why the line of, honey, you're not on this island alone. I'm right here if you need to talk about anything. He can see. He will be able to see that picture in his head.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And also that will subside in time. There's nothing that you can do or that you even should do. The only cure or fix, to use a ridiculous term, is just the passage of time. And that could be anywhere from later that day to 3 or 4 days out. Usually doesn't go more than that, because they get distracted by new worries at that point. Barbara, we talk about ASD being logical, but it seems to me my husband is seldom logical. Yeah, according to you, because your logic is way different than his. But in his mind, Barbara, he is very logical. He thinks he's if he were here, he would probably say, I'm kind of surmising, he would probably say my wife is overly emotional and irrational. And he thinks he is coming to you from his logical mind. But it also makes sense to me, Barbara, why you would think that his logic is ridiculous. For example, when I asked him to kill a big bug in the house on the floor, instead of stepping on it, sat down, unlaced his shoe and took his shoe off and then hit the bug with his shoe. Okay. Yeah. So ASD and logic might be in common for his behavior to look illogical. Yeah, he uses his logic, which definitely in almost all cases would seem illogical to you, and vice versa. When you give him your logic, he's going to think that you're crazy. A lot of these guys use that term a lot. She's crazy. She is so illogical and overly emotional and so complicated. I don't know if that answered your question or not, Barbara, but it's very common for her to think his logic seems so illogical.
Yeah, thank you. It does answer it. I mean, the good news in our relationship is he usually says, oh, well, that is a better idea. Let's do it that way next time. So I'm lucky that way. But I'm just, I just get puzzled with that definition of logic. And so I see that now. Yep. Thank you for clarifying it.
And on that note, Barbara, they, and when I say they, I'm always being generic in all cases.
Mm-hmm.
They usually don't appreciate the advice from anybody that's not an expert in their mind. And they don't appreciate advice from anybody who is coming from an emotional vantage point. But if you can come to them with facts, and here's how you could win big with your husband, Barbara. Mm-hmm. If you, not that you wouldn't necessarily want to go through all this trouble every time, but if there was an issue and you wanted to do it one way and he wanted to do it a different way, if you would take a few minutes to do your research and come to him with a bunch of facts, you would be appealing to his logic. And if your logic made better sense than his logic, he would buy into your logic real quick. And he would say something like what you just said. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's probably a better idea. So it's not like these guys are just totally opinionated and you can never budge them. It seems that way. It's just that you're appealing to, I'm not sure what you're appealing to, but he gets the impression that you're trying to appeal to him through your emotional filter, and that's a big fat F- every time.
Yeah.
But as soon as you appeal to his logic and come to him specifically, and here's the magic word, facts, and I did some research on this, here's the article, and there's a bunch of other people that said the same thing, and they said do A, B, and C. What do you think? Oh, okay. Well, that's probably the way we should do it then.
Yep, that works. Thanks. You're right.
Hi, Mark and ladies.
Hi.
So, I've spoken a few times in this group and in the previous 4 weeks, and mostly when I've spoken, I've been pretty pissed off. But I want to let you know this weekend, Ron and I sat and talked, and I had reflected on some things that he had told me when we first met about how his ex-wife had stopped having sex with him very early on in their marriage, and how he had always felt that he said she had conjugally abandoned him. And so I kept thinking about that, and he and I sat down and started talking, and I brought that up, and I said, with regard to that, I feel as though you have emotionally abandoned me. I said, does that relate to you? Does that make sense to you in the same way that you felt abandoned with that previous issue? And he got it. He understood what I was saying. It made sense to him. And he said to me, so you thought you were getting me and what you got was somebody else? And I said, no. I thought I was getting you and what I got was you. I just got you with a different set of tools than I thought I was getting. And we laughed about it, but we agreed that we are going to keep working on it. We agreed we've both gotten a lot out of these groups. He's in your men's group. And it's just been a lot more positive since then. I thought so much about the things that you said about, fake it till you make it and all that. And there's been a few times where I've wanted to go like, oh my God, what the fuck are you thinking? But I instead either just turn and look the other way. Like it's one of those pick your battles things, right? It's just not that important. Or if it's worth bringing up, I'll bring it up. But I've been really trying to say it in a kinder way, or even in a lighthearted way. And he's being a lot more receptive to those things I'm seeing. So we're getting along 1,000% better than previously.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
And you used an analogy.
That's what made me think about it. When you talked about using analogies, I thought, yeah, I did. I brought up that previous situation. And I've always done this with him, oddly. I've always tried to relate it in pictures terms, even before the ASB thing was even on the table, I've always tried to paint a mental picture for him. And that's always worked better than me just kind of word vomiting, And so it was pretty successful this weekend. And we both are walking around the house and able to smile at each other and hug a little bit in passing. And we weren't doing that at all. So it's good. It's good right now.
So, not that you guys were doing anything wrong when you were trying to, Barbara, I'm going to shut your mic off just for a minute. When you guys were coming to him verbally, I mean, why wouldn't you? But that was one strike against you. And then you were coming at him sometimes with an element of frustration, and why wouldn't you? That was another strike because now this raises his anxiety. So now he has two problems. Two of probably several. He's trying to track your data that's being delivered verbally. That's difficult. And he's trying to track it under the pressure of some anxiety. So a little wonder why your good message got lost. So keep in mind that he is a visual learner. And if you can present your words visually, which sounds like an oxymoron, but you can. I'll give you an example. We already have some examples, but here's another one directly from one other lady. She was resentful and hurt, but she was working on the relationship and had no intention, had no desire to get a divorce or separation or anything. She was just hurt and wanted to hang in there and tough it out. But at the same time, she needed some space. He would come and want to be intimate. And I'm talking in the sexual sense and other ways. And she just wasn't in a state of mind to handle that right now because she was hurt. And, she just didn't have it in her to fake that. And she said, I can't get him to understand that, no offense, but I'm not interested in being intimate right now because I'm still trying to recover from this damn stuff. Resentment and hurt and being deprived emotionally. And so we came up with an imagery for her. She used it and she said it worked. And she said she used the analogy of, I forget exactly what she came up with, a beautiful, basically kind of like a small fictional story, but it was basically an analogy. And she came up with some characters, and she told him this story, a fictional story. And she said, I'm just going to tell you this fictional story that I came up with. And she used some imagery. I'm not going to bore you with the details. And he was able to put two and two together then. That the message he got was, she's not avoiding being intimate with him because she doesn't want to, not because she doesn't like him or is trying to distance herself from him. She's not intimate right now because intimacy, you have to be relaxed. You have to be calm. You have to be in the spirit of having fun, and you have to especially be in the spirit of play. Sex is play and fun. And she's taking life a little too seriously now to be able to just push that aside and fake having fun and fake play. She's not in that state of mind to do that. And that was basically the message that he got when she used her analogy, that, it's nothing against you. I'm just not able to play and have fun right now, but I'm working on getting that back. The other thing that would be helpful in the spirit of how to help him get things, and we could plug anything, we might want to do this. We may want to take something where you guys would go, okay, on the topic of stuff that he doesn't get, he never gets, when I tell him such and such, he never gets this. We may want to plug this in to role play. So there's another thing. In addition to being a visual instructor, this is kind of like your compassionate coaching business. I'm gonna get my message across using an analogy or a short fictional story. Another thing that would be helpful if he's up for doing this, and some of them won't be, is to role play things. I'm going to use the example real quick of maybe a communication strategy where you're trying to problem solve. I'm just going to grab one that we talked about. I believe we talked about this either directly or indirectly, so here it is. I have said, you guys really do need to begin the business of discussing some of the more weighty topics, because and I know some of you have said, we don't talk about anything very seriously anymore because we just talk about the weather, what we're going to have for dinner, because if I bring up anything that even is remotely weighty, we can't have a conversation. He just sets him off. So we're talking about stuff a long time ago. The only problem with that is it keeps getting piled up. When you are being gracious and dismiss a topic, in other words, well, I really have an issue here that I'd like to discuss, but I'm not going to discuss it. It doesn't just go away. It goes into the closet, and that thing starts getting piled up and really congested. So it's going to be important to be able to get to a point where you can discuss the more difficult topics. And here is a method to do that. We can talk about that in greater detail if we need to. But I'm putting this strategy for conversation over more difficult topics in here to discuss the business of role play. You don't want to wait until there's a huge issue that needs to be discussed and then try to use the strategy that I've put in here. It says speaker at the top. And if you don't see it, it'll show up in the notes when we're done. Because tempers may be too hot to do this thing right. So it would be good before there is a problem to role play this stuff. And we can talk in greater detail if you want me to fill in the blanks for you. But those are two big things that you could do to help him. Use analogies or a short fictional story when there's something that you want him to get and he can't quite get it. And with respect to conflict resolution, it would be you don't have to use this one that I just popped in there. You can use any kind of conflict resolution strategy that has worked or semi-worked for you guys, but don't wait until there's a conflict to do it. Role play it. Come up with a fantasy. There's a key word for you. It would be best to maybe not role play a conflict that you actually did have, because it's going to be too hot. Come up with a conflict that hasn't happened and probably never will happen. It's a total made up deal, and role play that. And practice conflict resolution over an imaginary conflict. So then when the real thing happens, you've already had a little time under your belt to practice, and now it's not going to seem so artificial. It's not going to seem so rehearsed, and hopefully the emotions won't be so high and attached to it such that you get 2 or 3 sentences in and now both parties revert back to their old habits. He does his meltdown or shutdown or whatever, that type of thing. So I can expand on any of that if you need me to, or we can just shift gears entirely and go on to a new topic.
Mark?
Kate? Yeah?
This is Alex.
Hi.
Hi. I have a very serious issue to discuss with my husband, and I haven't found a way to do it. So I rented myself an apartment and I got the keys on Sunday. And I haven't told him. And
is he physically violent with you?
He's kicked down a door drunk. I mean, he definitely has a drinking problem. He's very, and in 2019, it was done in a horrible, traumatic way, where the police came and removed him from the home, and then the lawyer found the house, and I was out in 6 days, and I took everything. And it was just awful and traumatic for the kids, for me, for my husband, for my stepkids. It was disastrous. And so anyway, my husband is about to leave for the mainland. He has a whole nother family. His first wife died, and so he's got 3 grown kids and a grandson. His stepfather just died, and of course, he doesn't have a relationship with he doesn't have a decent relationship with any of these people, but he's very dutiful. So he's going to help his elderly mother. He told me, please don't add any surprises. Please don't. But he's the one who put the divorce back in play. And so I started looking for a place. I found a really good place. But I feel terrified because he has $24 million and I have veterans disability pay. So the power dynamic is very uneven. And he always threatens me. He tells me I'm a terrible mother, and that he threatens to take my kids away. And I'm not a terrible mother. I'm an excellent mother. And I'm under a lot of stress. So just like the person who said that the husband shuts down and goes elsewhere, this is a fight we had the other night. I'm holding this secret about this apartment that I have. And we're getting our 3 and 5-year-old ready for bed. And he sleeps on the opposite end of the house. So my hope was to read stories with the 2 boys and both of us in the same bed, just read bedtime stories. And he took my younger son to a separate room. That son looks like him, acts like him. He's the mini-me. Anyway, I said, could you please come here because we're starting to read? And he didn't acknowledge me. And this happens all the time. And
Okay, you're raising a dozen different questions here, Kaylin.
I need to know, like, how to handle myself. I flew into a rage.
Okay, so we had this conversation before, and I want to have it again. And that is, somebody used the term earlier about pick your battles carefully. I forget who that was. So, Caitlin, what I want you to do, I'm sorry, not Caitlin, Alexandria, is because, and I'm not faulting you for bringing up multiple topics because I'm sure that that's how your life feels right now. It feels like there's 55 things I need to address, and I'm not sure which one to address first, and I'm also not sure which one is more severe than the other. So what I would like for you to do, and I think we might have had this conversation before, I don't remember, but I would like for you, Alexandria, to, if we didn't have this conversation before, to start in your journal. I want you to list all the things, we could call it your worry journal. I want you to list all the things that you're worried about. That's step 1, right? Step 2 is I want you to prioritize as best you can those worries because they're not all equal. Some are critical, others are important, but they're not critical. That's step 2. And then step 3, I want you to categorize them with respect to what I can control and what I cannot control, and what I might be able to control if circumstances were slightly different. So let me repeat this. I would like for you to start a journal because A, you're scattered right now, and why wouldn't you be? It feels like you're juggling an infinite number of bowling ball pins. Why wouldn't you? You need to get some clarity so that the whole thing won't seem so overwhelming. So in the journal, you're going to list all your worries. You're going to list them in order of urgency, or whatever words you want to use, a level of importance. And then also you're going to categorize them with respect. I can control these. I can't control these, but there's a little bit of an overlap where I might be able to control these if circumstances were slightly different. So it's not going to just be black and white. I'm always going to be able to control this. I'm never going to be able to control that. It's not quite that simple. There's going to be some overlap where here's a few things that I think I might be able to control if circumstances were slightly different or the timing was slightly different, something like that. So the point of this, none of this is going to solve your problems with him, with the question of what do I do about telling him about the apartment. My goal for you is to get some clarity so that you don't seem so overwhelmed and scattered. I think you have bigger fish to fry right now than you're asking some other questions. I think we need to back up and punt so that you can get some clarity about what direction you need to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It
With
just, I get at the feeling of being singled out, and he does a decent job being playful with the kids, but I'm not heard. Literally, I'm not heard. He literally lost his hearing the other day.
Yeah.
And went to the doctor, and his blood pressure was sky high. And I think he lost his hearing because of a potassium imbalance from drinking too much. But meanwhile, I've got angina and chest pain.
Okay. So
I feel like.
So what I need you to do is to do this journaling, Alexandria, and I also need you to not make any major decisions right now, including how do I tell him about this apartment? You're not in a position to make it. I don't want to make this sound sarcastic or belittle you. Anybody in your position would be the same way. You're not in a very good position right now to make any important decisions. So in that case, you make none about the more difficult things that need to be decided upon. That includes about this apartment thing. That's not a decision I want you to make right now.
Yeah.
Ellen says, I get so discouraged sometimes. So far today, I've heard I have to do research and provide him with facts in order for him to listen to me. Yeah, that research would take maybe 5 minutes, depending on what he was wanting to talk to you about, or whatever decision that you were. If he's wanting to do something a certain way and you're wanting to do it a different way, you don't have to find the facts in order to get him to listen to you. But if you did find the facts, which wouldn't take any time at all, we have Google, that would take 2 minutes, and then you could present him with the facts that you found, which take another minute. And so now you're appealing to his logic. Number two, I have to make up fictional. You don't have to make up fictional stories or analogies. But if you wanted to appeal to his visual thinking, it would certainly help. But you could continue to do it your way, Ellen. Number three, I have to predict what might possibly be a problem in the future so we can role play it. No, you're not listening to me. I didn't say role play a possible problem. I said pick a problem that has never happened and is not likely to happen, and role play that. It's going to be a perfectly innocuous conflict because it's never happened. It's not likely to happen, so there's no emotional strings attached to it. And so you're practicing the business of establishing communication while it's safe in the role play, so that when there is a problem, you've already kind of practiced that. So there's no predicting involved, and the role play is a communication strategy. The role play that I'm referring to specifically is this communication strategy that I pumped in here. It says speaker at the top. That is something that you need to be doing whether you role play it or not. You're going to be communicating, or you're going to be lack of communicating. You can pick. Go ahead, Ellen.
I guess I didn't understand what you meant about the role playing. So can you give me an example of something that we would want to never encounter?
Yeah, I'm just making something up. I specifically mentioned the role play business with this strategy where, when possible, you're going to make an appointment with him to discuss a fairly heavy topic. And I understand you can't always do that. Some things are emergent and they're just going to have to be talked about now, and that's fine. So when you make an appointment, you could say, Ellen, what's your husband's name?
Ben.
So you say, Ben, there's something I need your help with. And when you're calm or when you're not busy, can we talk about something? So that's the appointment. That took 5 seconds. You make it sound like there's a ton of work here, and there's not. So when you do finally get the appointment, you're going to keep the discussion short and concrete. Why? Because the longer you talk, the more his anxiety follows. You go 10 minutes, his anxiety is at 10. If you can't get that conversation done in 5 minutes, you need to not say a damn thing, go back to the blackboard and summarize. Figure out a way to condense it down. You also need to speak in terms of needs. He has this thing called alexithymia most often, which he doesn't understand how he feels. Sure doesn't understand how you feel. And if you say, well, I feel this way about this, Ben, and you expect him to take how you feel and apply it to a task he's supposed to complicate, a task that he's supposed to complete, it's probably not going to happen. It also would be best to not bring up the past unless it's pertinent to the present, which sometimes it is. It would also be helpful when you're communicating with him to stay on the one topic that you brought up. If you want to talk about problem 1, that's fine. But while you're talking about problem 1, if problem 2, 3, and 4 show up, don't try to tackle all that. Stay with 1. If there's a second one, that's fine. You make an appointment for that one some other time. So now how to role play that? I'm going to make up something. Well, and this is going to, and also on this note, it would be kind of prudent to come up with some kind of a hilarious scenario that might actually have some humor to it, that the both of you would have a hard time not chuckling about it. There's another little gold nugget for you. So in the spirit of coming up with something that might be actually funny, let's say that I'm making up a story now, he likes to leave the back door unlocked through the night and leave it open because he likes a cool breeze coming in. And every night there's 3 cats that live in the neighborhood that get in the house through the back door that he left open and crawl under your bed while you're trying to sleep. And then they're down there doing their meowing and their nighttime chanting, and it keeps you awake all night. So you're going to make an appointment. Ben, we're role playing. Ben, can I make an appointment with you? I need your help about something. Sure. And so in this case, we're not really going to wait for an appointment time an hour later. We'll just go ahead and do the appointment now. When you leave the back door open, I know that you want to have some fresh air coming in, but the cats get in and they crawl underneath the bed and they do their chanting and their nighttime meowing, and it keeps both of us up. I need you to close that door at night and maybe open up the screen or whatever to get the cool air come in. And so that's just an example, a ridiculous example of role playing your delivery. This is your message. This is something that was important to you that you wanted him to get. Now, what I have the guys do, and what you can ask Ben to do, Ellen, is to paraphrase back what you said so that A, you will know that he listened, and B, you will know that he understood exactly what you meant. Because sometimes Ben has probably listened, or you thought he was listening, and he wasn't listening. So that's why it's important. So that's your message about the cats. Then his job then is to paraphrase back what you said, so to check for accuracy. So Ben would say in return, okay, Ellen, so what I hear you saying is you don't want me to leave the door open because the cats get in the house, and maybe open the screen instead. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So there's an example of a role play.
So I would tell him in advance, we want to role play this strategy. And then I make up something like him leaving the door open, not something he's actually doing.
I would prefer, when you're practicing this conflict resolution strategy, to come up with something that has never happened and will never happen. Because in this way, you're not bringing up a past incident that's already going to be charged, emotionally charged. And it's also fun to come up with something that might be slightly humorous, so that when you do have a real conversation about a real problem, in an ideal world, in the back of your memory, you would remember when you came up with this ridiculous role play that was kind of humorous. So it might take some of the sting out of a more heavy conversation. But having said that, I do want to validate, Ellen, that it does seem like a lot of work. I don't want
I
to.
know that it's not really that much work. Like you explained, how it only takes a few minutes. It's just when you feel like you're already doing so much, just a little bit more seems like a lot.
I know. It's not a lot of extra work, but I also know it seems like a lot of extra work because in damn near every case, she, whoever she is, has been doing the lion's share of the relationship work, for sure. So it's like, God, and now I've got more to do. It does. But, on the other side of the coin, your intentions were of the best, and you were doing the best that you knew how to do at the time, but you kind of created your own, you kind of shot yourself in the foot by taking on too much responsibility. And I know the argument is, well, if I didn't do it, it wasn't going to get done. But there are some cases where maybe you could have backed off a little bit and thrown the ball in his court. So
that's not even my problem. I'm just talking about the emotional load.
Yeah.
Which
right.
I realize he
Mhm.
can't be expected to take. Thank you.
Caitlin wanted to ask about lying. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to try your role play thing, and I'm kind of curious how it might apply to this. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
We've had a huge problem with lying over the past 7 years that it took me a long time to figure out what was going on, and I've sorted it down to the fact that a lot of these huge things that he'll lie about, I realize he has no idea how huge they are. He's just not. He's not seeing what's going on, and then he's getting into a cycle of like being so afraid to get in trouble. It's this cat and mouse thing. So I really have my, it seems to be all sorted out. Like I'm really seeing what's going on, but at the end of the day, his pattern is to lie. If he's backed into any kind of corner or feels that anything might disrupt the peace or anything, he will just lie. And it's where his dad taught him, you should always just lie to smooth things over. And his dad is in his life every day and constantly encourages him to do such things. So he lies all the time. And then he doesn't really he's not connecting when he does lie. I mean, it's a mess with the lying.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know, I can get more specific, but I didn't know if you could generally shed light on that or apply it to this role-playing situation. I can be more specific.
Well, you hit the nail on the head because the reason that he's lying, well, it's usually twofold. One, he is trying to get out of trouble. But the problem there, though, Caitlin, is a lot of times he lies when he wouldn't even be in trouble.
Yes.
So it becomes a habit. So you may run into, well, maybe not you, but a lot of ladies run into, so he lies about this thing and there was not even any reason to lie about it. So he does lie to get out of trouble, but the problem there is he's a bad judge of when he's in trouble. So he ends up lying about too many things, many of which it wouldn't matter if the truth was staring you right in the face, it wouldn't have mattered. But he's not going to be able to differentiate between when would be a really good time to lie and when was a ridiculous time to lie. So, but the other thing is, and this is what some NT wives get really irritated with because it sounds like I'm making excuses. A lot of times, since he sees things through such a different lens as yours, and his truth is so different than yours, a lot of times when you think he's lying, and I'm not sure that this is necessarily, what's your husband's name, Caitlin?
Chris.
So I'm not necessarily accusing Chris of doing this, but I can tell you this happens a lot where he sees things so radically different than she does. And he walks away with almost a 180-degree opposed perspective. And then when he recounts his opinion on the thing or perspective on the thing, and she's listening and she goes, "What? Were we watching the same movie? Because that's not even close to what the hell happened." And he's so adamant about, yeah, that's what. And so that's his truth. He saw it so, I'm going to use a sarcastic term. He walked away with such a skewed perspective. And then when you pick his brain later on about the incident in question and he feeds it back to you, you go, no, that's from planet Mars. That's not what happened here on Earth, Betty. But it's not that he's purposely lying in that case. That's exactly how he saw it. So sometimes that goes on too, where he's not trying to get out of trouble. He's giving you some harebrained recollection of what happened, and you're going, I have no idea where he came up with that shit. But that's the way he saw it. That's the way he processed it, and that's the way he remembered it, which is a whole nother can of worms opened up there, because now we have this business of of executive function deficits that affect his recall and affect how he's processing things in the moment of the issue in question. So he's processing things weirdly, mostly by missing a lot of data. He's only getting like 20% of the information that's registering in his brain during the incident in question. And then he also has a problem with recall. So now you've lost another 10%. So out of the 100% of data that occurred in a particular conversation or incident or whatever, he's only maintaining 10% of accuracy, and the other 90% is skewed based on how he thought about the event between the occurrence of the event and after the event. So sometimes he filled in that huge blank with the missing data for the event. He filled that missing blank in with what he thought was the correct data. So there's a multitude of issues there, and so it doesn't surprise me why you would think, he lies when he doesn't need to lie, and he comes up with things that are so far off base with respect to what actually happened or what was said or what was done. So what I would say is a long way around the bush to get to your question, Caitlin. I don't know how you would go about this, but I'll just put it in the form of a question. Would it be possible for you to come up with a rule? I'm sure he's big on rules and routines and structure and stuff, where I'm just putting it out here as a question. I don't know the answer. Would it be possible for the two of you to have a relationship rule that says it doesn't matter what's going on or what the issue is, let's have a rule where honesty stands, and here's the question. Can you do that with the addendum that as long as you're being honest with me, you're not going to be in trouble for it. I'm not going to like it, and I'm going to want to change it, but I'm not going to chew you up for whatever you did that you're trying to get out of if you're honest with me. Same thing you do with a child. If you're honest with me, there's not going to be any consequences. I'm not going to like it. I'm going to want to try to fix whatever it was, but I'm not going to launch into an argument or fight about it. Would that even be possible?
Well, I've been kind of functioning on that level for a long time. I mean, that's why I say there's so many times that I'm like, you didn't even have to lie. Like I like the big one was with this child that he had with our friend, which was started out as a donor situation. I changed my mind, and then they went ahead with the donor situation, and it became just a series of events through the years where he just kept lying. But we had so many lying situations that we decided to part ways, and we were just a donor. But then he maintained a relationship for like a good 5 years without me knowing. But I would constantly say through the years, would you like, I think you may want to have this relationship, whatever. And then when it got towards the end and I started suspecting that maybe he was having contact, I said, I am okay. I totally support you being a dad. Like, I really think it would be good, but you have to talk to me about this. Like, what's going on? He's like, why would I ever do that? I don't want to do that. And he got himself so confused in his head about what was the truth and what wasn't, that he started really believing that he wasn't lying to me.
Yeah,
when he was right. Like secretly doing it, and it became so confusing. But I was saying, like, he said, what can I do to make you believe me? And I was like, honestly, just right now, tell me the truth. Just admit that you are having contact, and then I'll believe that you're turning over a leaf and that you can tell me the truth, and I will not be mad at you. Just tell me right now. And he said, no, absolutely not. Why would I do that? I would never do that. I'm not doing that. And he even said, I feel like I'm in the lying rehab or something, and I don't even want to be around people who lie. And he was mad at this friend who told me she had seen him at the person's house. Mm-hmm. And it oh my gosh, it was so confusing. I have to do my own therapy to recover from all of it. But I realized, like, it's like genuinely, I got to the point where I was like, okay, look, I don't think that you can figure out how to tell the truth. And I've decided that I know I trust that you care about our family, and that I trust that you love me, and that's separate from me trusting that you can tell the truth. And he's been trying to do work on it. But anyway, I really do take the stance of, like, you're not in trouble if you tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm there.
And the other piece is, okay, and the other piece is embarrassment.
Okay, yeah.
That's
a big one then.
So you may want to throw that in.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can come up with something that sounds soft. As long as you can be honest with me, I'm not going to think any less of you. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't need to feel embarrassed to come to me to talk about things. So that would be an important message, Caitlin. You would want to word it in a better way than that, where you're basically saying, no matter what you tell me, I'm not going to think any less of you. That would be a good soundbite, because part of this is to tell her, even though I'm not going to be in trouble, it's just still too painful because it's so embarrassing. So if you would let him know, hey, it doesn't matter what it is, you're not going to be in trouble, and I'm not going to think any less of you. So that kind of, at least in theory, removes the embarrassment factor. at least on your end. You've tried to remove the embarrassment factor. Now, whether he allows himself to buy into that notion, that's out of your control.
Thank you. You gave me two things in there that are completely new, that are really good for me to think about. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was right on. Thank you very much.
Ma, was that a question? And while, if like me, undoing the damage of years in such a relationship has done on your ego, or you were just...
No, it was actually more a reaction. I mean,
Okay.
there's a lot of work, and I think you mentioned that a lot, and I appreciate that the situation is hard, and these are tactics to make it easier. I took your words to heart about the recognition last time, and I set my alarm clock for 7 reminders a day, plus 10 minutes waits to, to say something positive. And my plan is to continue that through after Thanksgiving, because I needed to lessen the negative energy in my house. And that is working. It's 10%, 10%, 10%. There's no magic bullet. I also have taken your video that you posted last week about the energy when you get into a discussion. Don't go in with negative energy, go in neutral. And that is helpful too. Your comment about the past too. But there's and I know this is obvious, but there's so much, right? And a lot of it, I mean, I got into this relationship, poor self-esteem. There's no sane person that would have lasted as long as I did. So it's I guess my comment is it's just not easy, right? Because you're dealing with yourself.
Yeah, it is not easy, but, well, I don't want to say but, because it sounds like I'm negating what you just said. It's not easy for you, and it's not easy for him, because here's what happens. It sounds like I'm making excuses for him, or I'm trying to get you to feel sorry for him, which I'm not. I am trying to get you to maybe increase your compassion level a little bit. You ladies don't understand all the shit that he has to live with. It has nothing to do with you. And I could lecture for the next 3 hours. There's the mind blindness, the alexithymia, weak central coherence, executive function deficits, being ostracized from his peer group growing up, being the problem child at home, being the problem student at school, basically not being able to make friends, so you have to learn how to entertain yourself, having poor social skills, and the list goes on and on and on. So this guy is dodging paintballs all day, and he is ill-equipped, quite honestly, to function in the social world. And you are one of the most highly socially, emotionally that's not a proper term, in his life. It's like the thing that he struggles the most with involves emotional prowess and social prowess. And so you're the very thing that he's the worst at. It's a hell of a paradox, I'm telling you what.
That is a really good word for it.
And so, it's little wonder why there's such a communication breakdown, because you are high in social intelligence and emotional intelligence. He's retarded in both of those areas. And to make matters worse, he's overly logical. He's an overthinker, and he can only see his logic, which to you is totally illogical. So there's no meeting of the minds. It's like, doesn't matter what part of my brain tries to connect with some part of his brain is just. So that's why it has to be difficult for you, Ma, is because there's no way you're going to get anything accomplished unless you juggle, unless you start dodging your own version of paintballs. Carol says, can you talk to us about something you said in the last group about how Aspies may have an easier time communicating with women, but then they have an emotional relationship with that woman because they don't understand boundaries? I must have had a brain fart because I don't remember saying anything about how Aspies have an easier time communicating with women. Did I say that, Carol?
In the last group with couples,
Yeah.
it stood out to me because Steve said, I really relate to that. He said, I do have a lot easier time relating to women than I do men.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had several instances where I classify them as emotional relationships. And he says, because he didn't have sex, he didn't feel there was anything wrong with that relationship at all. But to me, he crossed the boundary and, bought gifts for her and did things that just were not appropriate. And we're trying to build trust and everything. So I just want to know if you could address that.
Yeah. And this sounds so bizarre. Some of you may find this really hard to believe, and I don't blame you. We're back to Fantasyland again. I forget who I was talking to. Let me see if I can recall the conversation. I think it was kind of with Caitlin, where I was saying that they do live due to mind blindness and a host of other things. Being in the present moment with what's going on here and now is painful, and that's not an exaggeration. PAINFUL, bold, italicized, capital letters, red, underlined. Being present is painful. As evidence, as one of the things that you can relate to here is whenever you're trying to talk to him and you want him to be present. That's very difficult. Being present is boring. So he either is going to be involved in his special interests, in which case he is lost in his own little world. Or if he can't be with his special interests, he's going to be lost in his own little fantasy land in thought. And so when he's having these supposed emotional relationships and doing emotional cheating, I can promise you it's nothing more than a fantasy with him. He wouldn't know how to handle that person. If he left you and went to her, that would never happen because he wouldn't know how to handle that, because now he's back to dealing with somebody who's social and emotional again. He got out of one boat and climbed in another boat. But he can have this fantasy lady over here, and he can pretend that it's a romantic relationship, and he can do superficial things like talk and give her a gift. There's no commitment involved. There's probably not a whole lot of face-to-face communication involved. He doesn't have to read her feelings. So it's all simple, childlike, childish romance that's not complicated for him. And so he can engage in his little fantasy. I run into this more than you may think, too, this situation where he has what could look like an extramarital affair when it's nothing more than him doing more of his fantasy work. Hey, quick message to neurotypical wives out there who may be suffering from Cassandra syndrome. Do you feel emotionally exhausted, lonely, confused, disconnected in your relationship? And have you found yourself wondering, why do I feel so alone even though I'm married? And how did I lose myself somewhere along the way? And will I ever feel like me again? Okay, if so, you're not alone. Most of the neurotypical partners I work with experience profound emotional deprivation that slowly erodes their sense of self, confidence, and hope. Here's the good news, though. Recovery is possible. I've created a recovery program that's now available as a self-paced online course. Originally offered as a live group, this program has helped participants understand the emotional deprivation they've experienced, make sense of the confusion and self-doubt, and begin rebuilding their sense of identity and emotional strength. Now you can go through the same material from the privacy and comfort of your own home and move through it at the pace that works best for you. Now, whether you're just beginning to understand what you've been experiencing or you've been searching for answers for years, this course will help you begin the journey back to yourself. You don't have to continue surviving on emotional crumbs. You deserve clarity, support, and you deserve to understand what's happened to you. And most importantly, you deserve to recover. The version of you that existed before confusion, exhaustion, and self-doubt is still there, and this course was created to help you find that part of yourself again. Enroll today, won't you? You don't have to wait for the next live group. Your healing can begin now. The link will be in the description area underneath this video and also pinned in the comment section.